Let me tell you something that happened in my courtroom last Tuesday morning that made my hands tremble for the first time in 40 years on this bench. Made me question everything I thought I knew about the men and women we trust to protect our community. I've seen corruption that would make your stomach turn. I've seen cruelty that would break your heart. But what I witnessed that day made my soul ache so deep, I thought it might never heal. You want to hear a story about betrayal? About a man who wore a badge but forgot what it meant? Who carried a gun but lost his way? Who swore to protect and serve but chose to terrorize and destroy? Please sit back, because this one will shake you to your very core and make you understand why we can never, ever stop fighting for justice. In 4 decades of serving justice in this city I love, dealing with every kind of criminal and corruption imaginable, I've seen maybe 3 cases that truly stunned everyone in the courtroom into absolute silence. This was one of them. The kind of case that makes you lose sleep, that makes you pray harder, that makes you grateful for the honest cops, while your heart breaks for the victims of the dishonest ones. The silence that followed my sentence, you could hear a pin drop from 3 courtrooms away, and you could feel the weight of justice settling on everyone present like a heavy blanket of accountability that had been missing for far too long. I've been a judge for most of my adult life, and I thought I'd seen every way that power could corrupt a person. But Officer Kevin Thompson showed me new depths of depravity that I pray I never witness again. The first piece of information came to me through a phone call that I'll never forget. It was Detective Sarah Martinez, 15 years on the force, calling me at home Sunday night with a voice so shaky I could barely understand her words. "Judge Caprio," she whispered, "I need to tell you something about Officer Kevin Thompson, but I'm scared for my career, scared for my safety." She'd witnessed Thompson, drunk on duty, beating a homeless veteran behind the courthouse while screaming racial slurs that would make a sailor blush. But it gets worse. Thompson had been showing up to work intoxicated for months, carrying a flask in his patrol car, drinking during his shifts while supposedly protecting our community. Detective Martinez had tried to report it through proper channels, but Thompson's connections in the department kept burying the complaints. The breaking point came when she watched him nearly kill that innocent veteran with his bare hands, all while reeking of whiskey at 2 in the afternoon. She'd been documenting everything secretly, taking photos, recording conversations, building a case, because she knew that without ironclad evidence, Thompson's supporters would destroy her career for speaking truth to power. The evidence that landed on my desk Monday morning told a story that made my stomach turn and my faith in law enforcement shake to its foundation. Internal affairs reports that had been mysteriously lost for months, suddenly recovered by Detective Martinez's courage. Victim statements from 3 homeless individuals who had been beaten by Thompson during his drunken rages, all afraid to come forward because who believes homeless people over police officers? Each statement described the same pattern. Thompson approaching them while clearly intoxicated, his slurred speech becoming violent threats, his fists becoming weapons against people with no way to fight back. Security camera footage from Murphy's liquor store showing Thompson purchasing vodka in uniform during his shift, then drinking it in his patrol car while parked behind the store. The timestamps showed daily consumption, systematic intoxication while carrying a gun and badge. Medical records from Robert Wilson showing broken ribs, severe concussion, internal bleeding that could have killed a man already weakened by life on the streets. Phone
Right here, pause for a second, because when a judge with 40 years on the bench says his hands trembled, that's not drama. That's a warning. Judges don't shake easily. So whatever's coming next, you already know it's far beyond a routine misconduct case.
Recordings of Thompson threatening witnesses, using his badge to intimidate victims into silence, turning law enforcement into organized crime. Bank statements showing Thompson had been paying off his supervisor to ignore complaints about his drinking. $3,000 in cash over 8 months. The most damning evidence came from Officer Rodriguez, Thompson's former partner, who'd finally found the courage to admit he'd been covering for a dangerous drunk for 2 years because Thompson had threatened his family. My hands shook as I read each page, realizing we'd allowed a monster to patrol our streets while wearing the uniform meant to protect us all. Tuesday morning, 9:30 a.m. sharp, Officer Kevin Thompson swaggered into my courtroom like he owned the building and everyone in it. 20-year veteran, chest full of commendations, walking with the arrogance of someone who'd never faced real consequences for anything in his entitled life. But I could smell the alcohol on him from 10 feet away. Vodka trying to hide behind mouthwash and cologne. The desperate camouflage of a functional alcoholic who thought nobody would notice. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling slightly, his speech just careful enough to suggest someone fighting to appear sober. The way he looked at the homeless advocates in the gallery, the way he sneered at Detective Martinez, the way he treated my courtroom like his personal kingdom, I knew I was looking at a man who'd forgotten that badges create responsibility, not immunity. Thompson carried himself like someone who believed his uniform made him untouchable. His connections made him invincible, and his years of service brought him the right to terrorize the most vulnerable people in our community. I'd seen that look before, the cold stare of someone who stopped seeing other people as human beings worthy of protection. Officer Thompson, I began, looking directly into his bloodshot eyes that couldn't quite focus on mine. You're here because multiple witnesses saw you assault Robert Wilson, a homeless veteran, behind this courthouse while you were on duty. Do you understand these charges? His response was classic deflection, wrapped in false authority, the kind of practiced evasion that corrupt cops perfect over years of avoiding accountability. Your Honor, I was restraining a dangerous individual who was threatening public safety and disrupting courthouse operations. But I'd seen the evidence, and I wasn't letting him hide behind police jargon. Officer Thompson, Mr. Wilson is 67 years old, weighs maybe 130 pounds soaking wet, and uses a walking stick to get around. How exactly was he threatening public safety? Thompson's mask started slipping as his rehearsed answers met persistent questioning. Judge, with all due respect, you don't understand street realities. Sometimes force is necessary to maintain order and protect law-abiding citizens from aggressive panhandling. Force? Officer Thompson, the medical report shows Mr. Wilson sustained 3 broken ribs, a severe concussion, and internal bleeding. Is that your definition of reasonable force? I could see sweat forming on Thompson's forehead despite the cool courtroom temperature, his hands trembling slightly as the alcohol in his system fought with his nervous system. Your Honor, homeless individuals often exaggerate injuries to gain sympathy and financial compensation from the city. The callousness in his voice shocked even his own attorney, who was frantically taking notes and likely calculating plea bargain options. Exaggerate. Officer Thompson, let me show you something. That's when I had the bailiff play the security footage that Detective Martinez had risked everything to obtain. The courtroom went dead silent as everyone watched Thompson, clearly intoxicated and unsteady on his feet, beating a frail old man who was doing nothing but trying to sleep on a bench behind the courthouse. The video showed Thompson kicking Wilson repeatedly, even after the old veteran had lost consciousness, screaming racial epithets that echoed through the speakers and made several people in the gallery.
This is what we call institutional rot, when complaints vanish, when reports go missing, and when the system protects uniforms instead of citizens. Detective Martinez isn't just blowing the whistle, she's risking her entire career to expose a blueprint of corruption. Ask yourself, how many times has this exact lie worked for people in power? He was aggressive, he was dangerous, he was resisting.
Gasp audibly. Officer Thompson, I continued after the video ended, my voice cutting through the stunned silence. That's not restraining a dangerous individual. That's attempted murder. His face went red with a combination of alcohol flush and desperate anger. Your Honor, that footage doesn't show the full context of the situation. Mr. Wilson had been aggressive and threatening earlier. What context justifies beating an unconscious man, Officer Thompson? I pressed, not giving him room to breathe or fabricate more lies. What threat does an unconscious 67-year-old veteran pose to a uniformed police officer? Thompson lost control then, his training deserting him as alcohol and panic took over. Judge, you've never walked a beat in your life. You don't know what it's like dealing with these people day after day. These people? You mean American citizens, Officer Thompson? My voice was getting harder, more pointed, as I watched this man reveal his true character. You mean veterans who served their country with more honor than you've shown in 20 years wearing that uniform. Thompson's response shocked everyone in the courtroom. I mean criminals and addicts who make our jobs impossible and turn downtown into a cesspool. That's when Detective Martinez stood up from the gallery, her decision to speak truth finally crystallizing into action. Your Honor, I need to tell this court what I witnessed that day and what I've been documenting for months. Thompson spun around in his chair, fury replacing calculation in his bloodshot eyes. Detective Martinez, remember who you work for. Remember who controls your assignments and your evaluations. But Martinez had crossed the line from fear to courage, and there was no going back. Officer Thompson, I work for justice, not for you. I work for the people of this city, not for corrupt cops who beat homeless veterans. Her voice was strong now, steady with the conviction of someone who'd finally chosen right over easy. Thompson's face went purple with rage. Detective, you're making the biggest mistake of your career. No, Martinez replied, looking directly at me instead of at Thompson. The biggest mistake of my career was staying silent for 2 years while you terrorized innocent people. Her testimony began destroying Thompson completely. The flask in his patrol car that he'd drink from during shifts. The racist language he'd use when describing homeless individuals. The systematic abuse of power that had gone unchecked because of fear and corruption. She described incident after incident where she'd watched Thompson assault people who couldn't fight back, then threaten witnesses into silence. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as 20 years of hidden corruption came pouring out through one brave officer's conscience. Thompson kept interrupting, shouting objections like he was still in charge. She's lying. She's jealous of my clearance rate. She's trying to destroy me because I wouldn't sleep with her. Each desperate accusation only made him look more pathetic, more obviously guilty. Martinez continued, calmly, methodically, presenting evidence she'd been secretly gathering. Photos of Thompson drinking in his patrol car, recordings of his threats against witnesses, documentation of cases that had been buried to protect him. Your Honor, Martinez concluded, Officer Thompson has turned our badge into a weapon against the people we swore to protect. He's made every honest cop in this department look like a criminal by association. Thompson was on his feet now, swaying slightly, pointing an accusing finger at his former colleague. You're destroying the thin blue line. You're destroying police solidarity. But his words rang hollow in a courtroom full of people who just watched video evidence of his crimes and heard testimony about his systematic brutality. The moment everything changed came when I asked Officer Thompson directly, "Are you intoxicated right now in my courtroom?" He tried to lie. "No, Your Honor, I'm completely sober." That's when I ordered immediate sobriety testing right there in court. The breathalyzer showed
It's the oldest shield in the book. But today? The evidence is finally punching back. This is the moment everything cracks open, years of secrets pouring out at once. And look at Thompson's reaction: denial, anger, insults, deflection.
0.12 blood alcohol. He was drunk while facing charges for drunk driving, drunk while wearing his uniform, drunk while representing law enforcement to our community. The silence in that courtroom was deafening, as everyone realized they were watching a complete collapse of everything police officers should represent. Thompson's face went white as the numbers appeared on the screen. His expensive lawyer started frantically taking notes, probably calculating how many years his client was about to receive. Even the court officers looked disgusted. Cops holding a drunk cop accountable for betraying their shared oath. Detective Martinez was crying quietly in the gallery, tears of relief that the truth was finally coming out. Tears of grief for what Thompson had done to their profession's honor. That .12 reading wasn't just evidence of intoxication. It was proof that Thompson had been living a lie for months, maybe years, while we trusted him with people's lives and safety. Before I passed sentence, I stood up from my bench and looked at every person in that courtroom: the advocates, the officers, the attorneys, the gallery full of citizens who'd come to see justice served. The weight of the moment settled on my shoulders like my father's hands used to when he'd tell me stories about right and wrong, about service and sacrifice, about what it means to wear a uniform in America.
Classic signs of a man watching the last walls of protection collapse around him. Right before sentencing, notice how silent the courtroom becomes. This isn't just about one officer, it's about every cop who hides behind the badge, every supervisor who looks away, and every victim who was told their suffering didn't matter.
"Officer Thompson," I said, my voice carrying 40 years of experience with human nature at its best and worst. My father came to this country with nothing but hope for a better life. Hope that his children would live in a place where justice wasn't for sale and protection wasn't a privilege. Thompson was staring at his hands now, the weight of his crimes finally settling on his shoulders like stones in his pockets. He taught me that service is the highest calling any human being can answer, that protecting others is a sacred trust passed down from generation to generation, that wearing a uniform means you're better than nobody, but responsible to everybody who looks to you for safety. I could see Detective Martinez nodding in the gallery, validation for her courage in speaking truth to power when it would have been easier to stay silent and safe. You took that sacred trust and turned it into a weapon against the most vulnerable people in our community. You turned protection into predation, service into selfishness, law enforcement into law breaking. The homeless advocates were holding hands, finally seeing someone in authority acknowledge their humanity and their right to be safe from the very people paid to protect them. My father used to say, "Frank, the uniform doesn't make you special. It makes you responsible. The badge doesn't give you power over people. It gives people power over you to demand your best. Thompson was crying now. 20 years of denial and alcohol-fueled arrogance finally cracking under the weight of truth and consequence. You forgot that responsibility, Officer Thompson. You forgot that badges are meant to protect people like Robert Wilson, not terrorize them. You forgot that every person on every street corner, no matter how poor or homeless or forgotten, is someone's child, someone's parent, someone worthy of protection rather than persecution. When police officers become the criminals they're supposed to catch, when protectors become predators, when servants become masters, democracy itself is in danger, and every citizen becomes less safe. I sentenced Officer Kevin Thompson to 2 years in state prison for assault under color of law, immediate termination from the police force with forfeiture of all accrued benefits, permanent loss of pension that would have supported him and his family for decades, and complete forfeiture of his law enforcement certification, ensuring he could never again wear a badge or carry a gun in service to any community. But that wasn't the stunning part that left the courtroom in shocked silence. The stunning part came when I ordered him to personally apologize to Robert Wilson and every homeless individual he terrorized, on camera, with the footage to be shown at every police academy in the state as a permanent warning about what happens when officers forget their oath to protect and serve. Thompson collapsed in his chair as the reality hit him. Not just the prison time that